Captain stood on the bridge of the Harmony Dawn and stared at the screen before him. Something was wrong. The sensors showed objects ahead, too many objects, all moving slowly through the darkness of space. They were far from any known settlement, in a region where nothing should exist. "What are we looking at?" asked his chief scientist. Leaned over her station, her fingers moving quickly across the controls. Her face grew pale as the data appeared. "Captain, those are ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands." The military commander stepped forward. His hand moved to his weapon, a habit from years of service. "Are they hostile?" "I don't think so," said quietly. "They're barely moving, most of them look damaged. These ships are old, very old." Made his decision quickly. "Take us closer, but keep shields up." As the Harmony Dawn approached, the truth became clear. The vessels ahead were not warships. They were colony ships, massive structures designed to carry thousands of people across the stars. But they were falling apart. Metal panels hung loose, engines were dark and cold, and several ships had holes torn in their sides. "I'm picking up life signs," said. Her voice shook. "Millions of them. Captain, there are millions of living beings on those ships." Felt his chest tighten. "Try to contact them." For several minutes there was only static. Then a voice came through, weak and filled with strange sounds that the translation system struggled to understand. Finally, words formed. "Please help us, we are dying." Work to clear the signal. An image appeared on the screen. The being looking back at them was unlike any human. Its skin was a soft blue color and its eyes were large and dark. It had no hair and its head was slightly larger than a human's head. The creature looked thin, too thin and very tired. "Who are you?" asked gently. "What happened to you?" The being seemed to think for a moment before answering. We have been traveling for 200 years. Every world turns us away. We have nowhere to go." His hands moved quickly. She pulled up data from the Galactic database. "Captain, I found them. They were expelled from the Galactic Council 2 centuries ago." "Why?" asked. Read from the screen. "It says they're telepathic. They can read minds. The Council declared them a threat to privacy and ordered them to leave all settled space." The on the screen seemed to sense their fear. "We do not read minds," it said sadly. "We feel emotions. We sense what others feel, but only strong feelings and only when very close. We cannot steal thoughts or control anyone, but no one believes us." Looked at the dying ships on his screen. He thought of the millions suffering inside them. Children, families, the old and the sick. They had been running for 200 years, rejected by every civilization they met. "How many of you are left?" asked. "We were 12 million when we left our home. Now we are 3 million. The ships are failing. Our food machines are broken. Our water is almost gone. In another year, maybe less, we will all be dead." Moved closer to, "Captain, we need to contact Earth. We need orders." Knew was right. This was not a decision one ship captain should make, but he also knew something else. It would take weeks for a message to reach Earth and for a reply to return. These people didn't have weeks. Said, "Can we help them? Do we have supplies we can share?" Checked her screens. "We have some food and water we can transport over. Medicine too. But Captain, it's not enough. There are 3 million of them. We can help them survive a little longer, but they need a real home." Closed his eyes. He thought of his own family back on Earth. He thought of his daughter, who was the same age as some of the children he could see in the background of the transmission. What would he want someone to do if it was her out there, dying in the dark? He opened his eyes and looked at the on the screen. "What is your name?" "I am," the being said. "I am Captain of Earth. I'm going to do something that might get me in serious trouble. I'm going to offer you and your people sanctuary on my world." The bridge went silent, stared at him in shock. "Captain, you can't make that decision. Earth's government." "Will take too long," interrupted. "By the time we get approval, thousands more will die. I'm not going to let that happen. Stood up from her station. She walked over to and put her hand on his shoulder. I agree with the captain. We should help them. Was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. If we're going to do this, we need to do it right. We'll need to organize the fleet, plan the journey, make sure they can all make it to Earth. Turned back to the screen. Gather your leaders. Tell them Earth will accept you. We're going to guide your ships to our world. It's going to be a long journey, but you won't be alone anymore. His large eyes filled with water, tears realized. They cried like humans did. Why? Asked. Why would you help us? No one else did. Thought about the question. He thought about Earth's history, about all the times humans had helped each other despite differences, about how his own grandfather had been a refugee once, fleeing war, and how strangers had taken his family in. Because it's the right thing to do, said simply, and because maybe, just maybe, we're different from the rest of the galaxy. Over the next several hours, the crew of the Harmony Dawn worked to establish contact with all the ships. They sent over supplies and began plotting a course to Earth. Sent a message home, explaining what he had done and asking for forgiveness rather than permission. As he watched the ships slowly come to life again, their engines lighting up one by one, wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life or the best decision. He supposed he would find out soon enough. Came to stand beside him. Do you think Earth will accept them? Looked at his reflection in the dark glass of the viewport. I don't know, but I hope we're better than the rest of the galaxy. I really hope we are. The news reached Earth before Captain's ships did. Within days, every screen on the planet showed images of the fleet approaching. Some people called a hero, others called him a traitor. The United Nations building in New York became a battlefield of words and anger. Secretary General stood before the assembly, facing hundreds of angry representatives. Her head ached from 3 days of arguments. Every nation had an opinion, and none of them agreed. They can read our minds, shouted the representative from Europe. How can we trust them? How can we have any secrets? We don't even know if that's true, replied, keeping her voice calm. Captains' reports say their abilities are limited. They sense emotions, not thoughts. And you believe them, the African Union representative stood up. Madam Secretary, this is a risk we cannot take. What if they're lying? What if they can control us? Looked around the room. Fear. That's all she saw. Fear of the unknown, fear of being vulnerable, fear of making the wrong choice. She understood it. She felt it too. But she also remembered her grandmother's stories about the refugee camps, about how scared people looked at her family the same way these representatives now looked at the idea of the. We have 1 week before they arrive, said. I propose we prepare a settlement area. We study them, we learn the truth, and then we decide. The vote was close. Some nations wanted to send them away immediately. Others wanted to accept them fully. In the end, they agreed to this plan. The refugees would land in an isolated area in Australia, far from major cities. They would be studied, tested, and watched carefully. Wu, the chief engineer, stood in the empty desert and watched as construction machines built the settlement. Thousands of simple homes rose from the sand. Medical centers, food distribution buildings, and water systems were installed. It was a temporary solution, but it was something. Do you think they're dangerous? Asked his assistant, a young woman named. Wu shook his head. I think they're scared just like we are. When the ships finally landed, the world watched. Cameras captured every moment as the first refugees stepped onto Earth's soil. They moved slowly, carefully, as if they couldn't believe they were really on solid ground again. Many of them fell to their knees and touched the dirt with their hands. Sara, a psychologist assigned to help with integration, watched from a distance. She had studied everything available about which wasn't much. Most of what existed were warnings and fears written by the Galactic Council, nothing about who they really were as people. The first she met was named, a mother with 2 children. Skin was the same soft blue Sora had seen in the videos, and her eyes held a deep sadness that needed no telepathy to understand. "Thank you," said in halting English. They had been learning human languages during their journey. "Thank you for letting us land." "How are you feeling?" Sora asked gently. Was quiet for a moment. "Scared. We are always scared now. For 200 years we arrive at worlds and they tell us to leave. We stopped believing anyone would help us." "What's it like?" Sora asked. "Your ability, I mean, what do you actually sense?" Looked at her children playing nearby. "Right now I feel your fear, not words, not thoughts, just the feeling. You are afraid of me, of what I might be able to do, but you are also curious, and you want to be kind. All of these feelings reach me like colors in my mind." Sora realized was right. She was afraid, but she was also curious. Knowing that could sense it made her uncomfortable, but it wasn't as terrible as she'd imagined. "Can you control what you sense?" Sora asked. "No," said sadly. "This is why they hate us. We cannot turn it off. Strong emotions reach us whether we want them or not. It is like asking you to stop hearing. We cannot." Over the next weeks, Sora worked with hundreds of. She learned that many of them suffered from what she recognized as trauma. They had internalized the galaxy's hatred. Many believed they truly were monsters, even though they had done nothing wrong. But not everyone on Earth was willing to learn. A group of protesters gathered outside the settlement. They carried signs calling the invaders and mind readers. Their leader, a man named Thomas, gave speeches about protecting humanity's privacy and keeping Earth pure. Late one night, Thomas and a dozen followers cut through the settlement's fence. They planned to destroy the water system, to make life impossible for the refugees. They moved quietly, believing no one would notice until it was too late. But they were wrong. A group of children playing a late-night game sensed the anger and hatred approaching. They ran to find Wu, who was working late on repairs. The children couldn't speak much English yet, but they didn't need to. Their fear was clear. Wu followed them and found the saboteurs at the water facility. He called security, and the men were arrested before they could do any damage. Thomas shouted about rights and freedom as he was led away, but the evidence was clear. The next morning, the story was on every news channel. The children had saved the very system that kept them alive. They could have stayed quiet, could have let the sabotage happen. Instead, they chose to warn the humans. Public opinion began to shift. Watched the news coverage with a small smile. It wasn't enough to convince everyone, but it was a start. She scheduled a public meeting at the settlement, inviting representatives from every nation to come and meet the face-to-face. When the day came, hundreds of officials walked through the settlement. They saw children playing games that looked similar to human games. They saw families eating meals together, laughing and crying like any human family might. They saw olds sitting in the sun, grateful just to feel warmth on their skin again. One representative, a woman from South America, asked to speak with. Sora translated and facilitated the meeting. "Is it true you can feel what I'm feeling right now?" the representative asked. Nodded. "Yes, you are nervous, uncertain. You want to do the right thing, but you don't know what that is." The representative's eyes widened. "That's exactly right. But how do I know you're not manipulating me? How do I know these feelings are really mine?" Reached out slowly and took the woman's hand. "I cannot make you feel anything. I can only sense what is already there. Your feelings are your own. I am just aware of them the same way you are aware of them." The representative was quiet for a long time. Finally, she nodded. "I believe you." More meetings followed. More humans talked to and realized the truth. They weren't mind controllers or invaders. They were just people with a different ability, trying to survive in a galaxy that feared them. But as they settled into their new temporary homes, a message arrived from deep space. The Galactic Council had learned that Earth was harboring the refugees, and they were not pleased. read the message 3 times, her heart sinking with each word. The Council was giving Earth an ultimatum: send thee away or face the consequences. Earth had 2 weeks to decide. She looked out her window at the city below, thinking of the 3 million now depending on humanity's choice. They had nowhere else to go. This was their last chance. The real test was just beginning. The Galactic Council's ship arrived like a storm cloud over Earth. It was massive, built to impress and intimidate. Ambassador Hin, a tall being with gray skin and 4 arms, descended from the vessel with an expression of disgust. Met him at the landing platform with Captain at her side. She had aged 10 years in the past months, but her resolve had only grown stronger. Secretary General, Hin said without greeting, I am here to ensure Earth complies with the Council's decision. The must leave or your world will face isolation. Would you like to see what we're doing here first? Asked calmly, before making demands. Hin's expression showed he thought this was a waste of time, but he agreed. They traveled to the settlement, where they had been living for 3 months now. The temporary buildings had been improved. Gardens grew in what had been desert. Children played in schools that human teachers and parents had built together. Impressive, Hin said coldly, but irrelevant. They are a threat to civilized society. Surely you've learned this by now. What we've learned, said, is that they're people, just people. Hin turned to face him. Captain, the one who started this disaster, do you understand what you've done? Earth was welcome in the galactic community. You had trade agreements, technology exchanges, cultural programs. All of that will end if you continue on this path. Then let it end, said. Put a hand on his arm, quieting him. Ambassador, you say they are dangerous, but in 3 months we've seen no evidence of this. What exactly did they do that caused their exile? Hin looked uncomfortable for the first time. They invaded the minds of council members. They exposed private thoughts and destroyed trust. Can you show us evidence of this? Asked. The records are sealed, Hin said quickly, for security reasons. Before could respond, a young ran up to them. His name was, and he was carrying a basket of vegetables. He stopped when he saw the ambassador, sensing immediately the anger and disgust in the air. I'm sorry, said in English, backing away. I didn't mean to interrupt. Wait, said a human agricultural specialist who had been working with. She came running after him. You forgot these. She held up more vegetables, then noticed the ambassador. Oh, I'm sorry. We were just bringing food for the community dinner tonight. Hin stared at the vegetables. Where did these come from? This is a desert. Helped us, said proudly. He can sense the health of plants. He knows when they need water, when the soil is wrong, when they're sick. Because of him and other, we've turned 20 square kilometers of desert into farmland. We're growing more food than we ever could before. Hin's face showed surprise, quickly hidden. I see. They continued the tour. Hin watched as human doctors worked alongside healers in medical centers. He saw adults learning human languages while teaching their own to interested humans. He witnessed a woman stop a man on the street, sensing his deep sadness, and then watched as she called for help. The man, they learned later, had been planning to take his own life. This intervention saved him. This is what you fear? Asked quietly. People who can sense when others are suffering and try to help. Hin said nothing for a long time. Finally, he spoke. You don't understand the danger. In a society where emotions can be sensed, there is no privacy. No secret is safe. No lie can stand. It destroys the social order. Or maybe, said, it destroys corruption. Maybe that's what the council is really afraid of. Hin's face darkened. You will receive the council's formal ultimatum tomorrow. You have 2 weeks to comply. I suggest you use that time wisely. He left without another word. That night they held a meeting. 3 million refugees gathered in person and through video connections. They had heard about the ultimatum. They knew what it meant. Who had been the first to speak with Captain addressed her people. Earth has given us everything. They shared food when they could have turned us away. They built us homes. They treated us like equals. But now, because of us, they will lose their place in the galaxy. The crowd was silent, stood up, his young voice carrying in the quiet. Then we should leave. We can't let them suffer because of us. And go where? An old asked sadly. We have nowhere left, but is right. We cannot destroy these people who saved us. Who had been invited to observe, stood up. All eyes turned to her. You're not destroying anything. You're not the problem. Fear is the problem. And I won't let fear make our decisions. But your world will be isolated, said. You'll lose so much. We'll lose technology, agreed. We'll lose trade routes and shortcuts through space. We'll lose access to the galactic market. But you know what we won't lose? Our humanity. Our ability to look at someone who needs help and choose to help them. That's worth more than any technology. A human voice called out from the back. It was Wu, the engineer. She's right. I've worked with you for 3 months now. I've learned more from engineers about sustainable systems than I learned in 20 years of school. You're not a burden. You're our partners. More humans stood up, voicing agreement. Sara, teachers, doctors, construction workers. One by one, they spoke about what they had learned about the friendships they had formed. The United Nations held an emergency vote 2 days later. Every nation voted. The debate lasted 16 hours. Representatives argued about economics, security, and Earth's future. They showed graphs and charts, predictions of hardship and isolation. In the end, it came down to a simple question. What kind of species did humanity want to be? One that chose profit over people, or one that chose compassion even when it cost them? The vote passed. Earth would keep they would face the consequences together. When Hin returned to hear Earth's answer, stood before him with every human representative behind her, stood at her right side, stood at her left. Ambassador said clearly, Earth rejects the Council's ultimatum. They are staying. They're not refugees anymore. They're citizens. If the Council has a problem with that, then we'll face it together. Hin looked at the united front before him. For just a moment, something like respect crossed his face. Then it was gone. You're making a terrible mistake. The sanctions will begin immediately. Don't expect mercy from the Council. We don't expect mercy, said. We expect to survive the way we always have, together. As Hin's ship departed, carrying the news back to the Galactic Council, the people of Earth and the stood together and watched it go. They didn't know what hardships were coming. They didn't know how they would survive without galactic support. But they knew one thing with certainty. They had chosen the right path. Sometimes, the right choice is also the hard choice, and humanity had never been afraid of doing things the hard way. Looked up at and smiled. Thank you, he said simply. Put her hand on his shoulder. Thank us when we figure out how to survive what's coming next. But her smile said she believed they would. Together, they would find a way. The sanctions hit Earth hard and fast. Within weeks, galactic trade ships stopped coming. The technology licenses that Earth had purchased were revoked. Ships traveling to other worlds were turned away at every port. Earth was alone. Food wasn't a problem, thanks to the agricultural techniques. But advanced medicine, computer systems, and energy technology all relied on galactic imports. Hospitals began rationing certain treatments. Factories shut down when machines broke and replacement parts didn't arrive. A talented hacker who worked for Earth's security division spent her days trying to find alternatives. She searched every database she could access for information that might help. Most galactic systems had blocked Earth's access, but was good at finding back doors. Late one night, she found something strange. A file buried deep in the Galactic Council's historical archives. It had been marked for deletion but not fully erased. Hands shook as she read it. The file told a different story about the exile. 250 years ago, several had served on the Galactic Council's Ethics Committee. Their role was to investigate corruption and fraud. Because they could sense emotions, they had discovered that several high-ranking council members were lying about trade deals, stealing resources, and manipulating votes. When they tried to report what they had found, the corrupt council members moved first. They claimed they had invaded their minds, stolen their thoughts, and could not be trusted. The council held a vote, and out of fear of exposure, enough members voted to exile the entire species. It wasn't about privacy. It had never been about privacy. It was about hiding the truth. Sent the file to immediately. By morning, it was on every news channel across Earth. Humanity was angry. They had sacrificed their place in the galaxy to help refugees, only to learn that those refugees had been exiled for doing the right thing. "We need to share this," said during an emergency meeting. "Every world in the galaxy should know what really happened." "The Council will deny it," warned. "They'll call it fake Earth propaganda." "Maybe," said, "but some people will believe it. Some worlds will start asking questions." While Earth fought with information, something else was changing. They had begun sharing their technology in earnest. They had always possessed advanced knowledge, but during their 200 years of exile, they'd had nothing to trade, no resources to show. Now, with Earth's help, they could finally demonstrate what they knew. Sung, a former soldier who now taught children, was present when the first living ship was grown. Engineers worked with human scientists in a massive facility built in the ocean. They sang to the cells, encouraged them, and shaped them with a combination of biology and emotion that humans had never imagined possible. Over 3 months, the ship grew. It wasn't built or assembled. It was born. The hull was a living membrane stronger than steel but self-healing. The engines used biological processes that converted almost any organic matter into fuel. The ship could repair itself, grow new sections when needed, and even reproduce given enough time and resources. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Yana, Earth's leading biologist. She touched the ship's surface and felt it respond, warm under her hand. "For you, maybe," an engineer named Lyra said with a gentle smile. "We've had 10,000 years to develop this. We feel living things. We understand them in ways you're only beginning to learn." The living ships were just the beginning. Medical technology could regrow limbs, cure diseases that humans had thought incurable, and extend life by decades. Their understanding of emotions led to new treatments for mental health that actually worked. Depression, anxiety, and trauma could be addressed not just with chemicals but with emotional balancing that they taught human doctors to perform. In the integrated communities, crime dropped to almost nothing. It was impossible to commit violence when could sense murderous intent before it became action. But more than that, they could sense the pain that led to crime. Poverty, addiction, and desperation created emotional signatures that recognized immediately. They started helping before crimes could happen, offering support and intervention. "They're changing us," Sarah reported too. "Not by controlling us, but by making us more aware. Humans who live near are becoming more emotionally intelligent. They're learning to recognize feelings in themselves and others. It's making us better." 18 months after the sanctions began, the first alien ship approached Earth that wasn't from the Council. It was a vessel from the Kelvin Collective, a species of cybernetic beings who had been labeled unnatural by the Council and marginalized for centuries. Their leader, a being called Unit 7, met within what had become Earth's new diplomatic center. Half the building was human design, half was organic architecture. The combination was beautiful and strange. "We heard what you did," Unit 7 said through its mechanical voice. "We heard you chose refugees over profit. We want to know if you would do it again." Looked at, then back at Unit 7. "Are you asking for sanctuary?" "There are others like us," Unit 7 explained. "Species the Council has rejected or marginalized. The hive minds who are called dangerous, the energy beings who are called unstable, the planet-bound species who are called primitive. We've watched Earth's defiance with interest. We want to propose an alliance." Over the next months, more ships came. Each one carried a species that the Galactic Council had deemed unacceptable. Earth welcomed them all. Not all stayed permanently, but all were offered food, rest, and respect. Who had been appointed as Earth's ambassador to these independent worlds, worked tirelessly to build relationships. He learned that many of these species had abilities or knowledge that the galaxy had dismissed. The energy beings could manipulate power in ways that solved Earth's energy crisis. The hive minds could coordinate complex projects with perfect efficiency. The cybernetic species could integrate technology in ways humans had never imagined. The Terran Alliance was born not from conquest or diplomacy, but from mutual need and respect. Earth became the center of a growing coalition of outcasts who discovered they were stronger together. Meanwhile, cracks appeared in the Galactic Council. Whence evidence about the exile spread, several younger species began questioning Council decisions. Why were some species privileged while others were rejected? Who decided what was acceptable? What other lies had the Council told? 3 years after Earth's defiance, 12 worlds left the Galactic Council to join the Terran Alliance. They brought their technology, their trade, and their people. The Council's monopoly on galactic civilization was breaking. Now a teenager stood on a hillside overlooking the new Earth Capitol building. It was a structure unlike anything before it, grown by, wired by the cybernetic collective, powered by energy beings, and designed by human architects. It represented everything the Alliance had become. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Captain had turned us away?" asked. "Smiled every day, but I'm glad he didn't. Look at what we've built together." Below them, humans walked alongside cybernetic beings and a dozen other species. Children of different worlds played together. Markets sold goods from worlds the Galactic Council had never acknowledged existed. "The Council is asking to talk," said. "I heard mention it." "Let them talk," said. "But on our terms this time. We're not asking for permission anymore. We're building something new." From across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched the Terran Alliance grow and knew they had made a terrible mistake. They had tried to punish Earth for compassion, and instead had created a rival power built on the very principles they had rejected. The question was no longer whether Earth would survive. The question was whether the Galactic Council would. 5 years had passed since the ships first arrived at Earth. Captain, now retired from active service, stood on the observation deck of the Harmony Dawn and looked down at the planet below. It barely looked like the same world. Massive organic structures grew alongside traditional human cities. Living ships filled the orbital stations, breathing and moving like the creatures they were. Energy patterns that represented the energy beings danced through the power grid, visible as beautiful lights at night. Earth had become something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. "You changed everything," said, coming to stand beside him. She had been promoted to head of the Alliance Science Division, but she still made time to visit her old friend. "I just made one decision," said quietly. "Everyone else did the hard work." Down on Earth, the Alliance Council was in session. 53 species now belonged to the Terran Alliance. Some sent representatives. Others attended through technology that allowed their unique forms to participate. The chamber was a riot of colors, shapes, and ways of existing that would have been impossible to imagine just years before. Older now with white hair but still strong called the meeting to order. The representative sat at her right. Who had become the chief diplomat sat at her left. "The Galactic Council has requested a formal meeting," announced. "High Arbiter himself wants to come to Earth." The chamber erupted in discussion. Many Alliance members had bad histories with the Galactic Council. They had been rejected, marginalized, or actively harmed by Council policies. "Why should we talk to them?" demanded a representative from the hive mind species. "They cast us out. They told us we were wrong, dangerous, unnatural." Because, said quietly, and everyone fell silent to hear her speak, we were once like them. We were part of the council. We thought we knew what was right. It took 200 years of suffering to learn differently. Maybe they can learn faster. A vote was taken. By a narrow margin, the Alliance agreed to meet with High Arbiter, but it would be on Earth, in the Alliance chambers under Alliance rules. The Galactic Council would come to them, not the other way around. When ship arrived, it was different from Ambassador Hin's vessel of years before. That ship had been designed to intimidate. This one was simpler, almost humble. Himself came with only a small guard. The High Arbiter was old, even by galactic standards. He walked slowly into the Alliance chambers and looked around at the diverse species gathered there. His face showed surprise and perhaps a hint of sadness. "Thank you for seeing me," said, his voice carrying through the translation systems. "I won't waste time with pleasantries. The Galactic Council is dying." A murmur went through the chamber, leaned forward. "Explain." "In the 5 years since us, 53 worlds have left to join you. 27 more are considering it. Those that remain are fighting among themselves. The Council was built on the idea that some species are acceptable and others are not. But you've proven that idea false. Every species you've welcomed has contributed something valuable. Every one we rejected is now making your alliance stronger while we grow weaker." "So you want to join us?" asked skeptically. "I want to propose something different," said. He looked directly at. "I want to apologize, on behalf of the Galactic Council, to thee and every other species we wronged. I've seen the historical files. I know the truth about why you were exiled. It was wrong. It was cowardly, and I'm sorry." The chamber was silent, stood slowly, her large eyes fixed on. "You're sorry, but my people spent 200 years dying in space. We lost 9 million people, families, children, elders. They died believing they were monsters because your council told them they were." "I know," said, and for the first time, emotion cracked through his formal tone. "There's nothing I can say that will bring them back or erase that suffering. All I can offer is the truth, spoken publicly, and a request. Not for the Galactic Council to join your alliance, but for both of us to build something new together. Something that includes everyone." Stood, "What exactly are you proposing?" "A new galactic government," said. "Not ruled by one council, but a federation where every species has equal voice. Where decisions are made transparently, where diversity is celebrated instead of feared. I know we don't deserve your help building this, but the alternative is continued division, possibly war." "We don't need you," said Unit 7, the cybernetic representative. "We're doing fine on our own." "You are," agreed. "But there are still thousands of species in the old council's territory, billions of individuals who had nothing to do with past decisions. If the council collapses entirely, the chaos will spread. Trade routes will fail. Smaller species will be conquered by larger ones. We have a chance to prevent that if we work together." The debate lasted for 3 days. Representatives argued every angle. Some wanted revenge on the council. Others wanted nothing to do with them. Many were simply tired of fighting. On the 3rd day, now a young adult and the youngest representative in the alliance, asked to speak. Permission was granted. "I was born on one of the exile ships," said. "I don't remember my grandparents because they died before I was born, starved because the galaxy wouldn't help us. I have every reason to hate the Galactic Council, but I've lived on Earth for 5 years now. I've learned something important. Hate doesn't build anything. It only destroys." He looked at, "You hurt us. Your council hurt so many people, but you're here now, admitting it, asking to make things right. If we say no, if we turn you away the same way you turned away others, then we become what you were. We become the people who judge and exclude." "The boy is wise," an elder from the planet-bound species said. "We should listen." Another vote was taken. This time, the decision was to negotiate. Not to surrender, not to let the past be forgotten, but to try building something better. Over the next year, Representatives from both the Alliance and what remained of the Galactic Council worked together. The result was the Federation Charter, a new agreement that guaranteed rights to all sentient species, banned discrimination based on biology or ability, and created a truly representative government. The charter included a historical record, sealed permanently, documenting every wrong the old council had committed. The exile, the marginalization of the cybernetic species, the dismissal of the energy beings. Every mistake was recorded so future generations would remember and not repeat them. Attended the signing ceremony. He was 70 years old now, his hair white, his body slower. But his mind was sharp, and his heart was full as he watched and signed the charter together. After the ceremony, found sitting alone on a balcony overlooking the ocean. She sat beside him without speaking for a while. "I wanted to thank you," said finally. "If you had turned us away that day, my people would be extinct now." Shook his head. "I just opened a door. Your people walked through it and showed us what you could do. You saved yourselves." "No," said gently. "We survived because you gave us the chance, because Earth gave us a home when no one else would." Below them, children played on the beach. Human children, children, and children from a dozen other species. They built castles in the sand together, laughed together, and didn't see each other as different. They just saw friends. "Do you know what humans used to say to us?" asked. "When we first arrived, afraid and certain you would reject us like everyone else." "What did we say?" asked. "Welcome home," said, and tears ran down her blue face. "You said welcome home to people you'd never met, to beings who could sense your emotions whether you wanted us to or not. You opened your world to us anyway." Felt his own eyes growing wet. "We knew what it was like to be afraid. Every human knows what it's like to feel lost or alone. We couldn't turn you away because we remembered what it felt like when we needed help." That evening, as the twin suns set over Earth, the first Federation fleet prepared to launch. 100 ships, human and alien, organic and mechanical, would travel the galaxy looking for other lost species, other outcasts, and bring them the same message Earth had brought the "Welcome home, you're not alone anymore." Stood on the bridge of the Harmony Dawn one last time, had asked him to come for the fleet's departure. He was too old to travel with them, but he could watch them go. "They said accepting the would cost us the stars," said quietly as the ships began to move, their engines lighting up the darkness. "They were wrong. It didn't cost us the stars. It gave us something better." "What's that?" asked. Smiled, thinking of all the species that now called Earth home, all the children playing together below, all the lost and lonely beings who would find their way to safety, because humans had chosen compassion over fear. "It gave us family," he said, "and family is worth any price." The ship sailed into the darkness, carrying hope to the lost and rejected. Behind them, Earth shone like a beacon, a promise that somewhere in the vast and often cruel galaxy, there was a place that would say yes when everyone else said no. Humanity had learned something the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. True strength isn't measured in weapons or wealth. It's measured in the willingness to help someone in need, even when it costs you everything. And that lesson, that one simple act of compassion Captain had shown 5 years ago, had changed the galaxy forever.